Hey, Anthony Slater, did you dress up in Miami? You were in Miami for Halloween, for crying out loud.
I dressed as a California NBA writer.
Out of bed.
I will say, there was a lot of people dressed up in Miami. I was not one of them.
Yeah.
There was plenty of costumes out there last night.
Always in Miami. It could be April 4th and there'll be people in costume in Miami.
Oh, gosh. Beautiful. So here we are, the Warriors in Miami, 3-4 versus 2-5, just like we all thought when they were all so relevant last June, right? What's going on with these two teams through your eyes?
The Heat, I don't love their personnel this year. They're trying to go smaller with Tyler Hero in the lineup. They're not defending that well. They tried Udonis Haslem in Sacramento the other day, in a loss to the Kings, by the way. And I don't know. I'm kind of down on them, although I do think the Warriors are catching them in a very bad spot. The Kings have had 2 straight days off. They're a little ticked off because of how the road trip went. They lost to the Warriors recently. They had from what I heard, a long practice yesterday, and the lore around here is when the Heat practice, which is rare, but when they do, they typically win the next game. So I think they're going to face a tough Heat team tonight. As far as what's going on with the Warriors, we can dive deeper into that. But, I think they're struggling with the implementation of their youth, which honestly was probably pretty predictable, but to see it play out has been I guess, an issue early on.
And beyond the implementation of the youth, defensively, it looks like across the board, 1 through 15, they've really struggled. Where would you pinpoint the defensive deficiencies for this Warriors team?
Yeah, they've pointed to the foul number. They're, I think, fifth most fouls in the league per game right now. They give up 38 free throws to the Pistons the other night. I thought the Pistons they just had more energy, more juice, and were just causing fouls. But when they do foul, it's tougher for them to get out in transition, get a flow. They're facing half-court defense. So I think that is one of the problems. I think, when they do put the young guys in, they're just it's not Otto Porter Jr., it's not Gary Payton. It's not even, Bielitsa is obviously very limited defensively, but every time they put Bielitsa out there, he knew the assignment. He knew when to rotate. You could even get him in a switch and feel somewhat comfortable. He'd just have some type of veteran trick that he might pull on like a Jokic and get a stop in the post. Whereas, Wiseman, Kuminga at times, even Moody, I think, has been getting blown by a little bit on the perimeter. It's just the defensive pieces and the defensive knowledge and IQ just isn't there when you're playing a lot of minutes, with 19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Anthony Slater with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game, our Warriors insider. Hey, can you, I think this is what you're going to do. Can you just put this to bed since it's going to be today's social media Warriors topic? They don't want Dwight Howard, do they?
Not from what I've gathered.
Right.
And they haven't, kicked the tires on him, in past years. Also, they don't really want a 15th man. They're trying to save money. There's a reason that spot is empty. It's not because they're waiting for a Dwight Howard or Carmelo Anthony. It's because if you have a veteran minimum in there, that costs you like $9 million, extra dollars, basically, in tax. They were trying to keep it open last year, but Gary Payton played himself into that contract. So not only, from what I gathered, is Dwight Howard not on their radar, nobody really is on their radar at this current moment as far as adding to the roster.
James Wiseman hopefully will be that Dwight Howard sort of figure defensively, especially. What's been the struggles for James Wiseman so far, especially on the defensive end?
Yeah, I think he's a step or two behind in rotation. I think a lot of just they're throwing a lot of strategy type stuff at him, and when you can really tell when he's in the drop coverage, which is it's normal for an NBA big, but you're kind of supposed to play the cat and mouse game. It's really what Draymond does so well historically. We can even remember back to those Rocket series when he would play Harden well enough to force Harden to throw the lob, but he would get back in time to whack it away from Clint Capella. Draymond is elite at that type of stuff. But you always see Wiseman kind of in no man's land where he's not close enough to contest the layup, and a lot of times a guard will slip a layup past him. But also at the same time, when they do throw the lob over his head, he's not getting back in time. So I think there's some of that. Also, just at least the last 2 games, it doesn't seem like he's been physically ready for the matchup against these high energy bench bigs on the Eastern Conference. A Nick Richards came in and was just kind of throwing his body around, got 4 rebounds over Wiseman. You saw that a little bit with Isaiah Stewart. these are just tough matchups. The games come, every other day essentially. So I think he's just dealing a little bit with the marathon of it. And it is only, his 40, I'm trying to do the quick math, 45th NBA game, something like that.
Yeah, so that whole thing, it's only his 45th game. It's interesting. It's kind of been the theme on our show today, Anthony, because we were talking earlier today about the last year and a half of the 49ers and whether or not it made sense at all to hand a roster that's this good over to a young quarterback. So same question with the Warriors, but I'll ask it this way. We all want to give James Wiseman and any of the other young guys time because they're owed that, like they need that. But how much patience does the Warrior organization have when they're ready to win now?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the question really the last 2 years. I mean, even when they drafted Kuminga and Moody, there was a lot of, buzz around that time. shouldn't they kind of use these lottery picks to maximize the present? And the reality, and I remember talking to Joe Lacob the day that they drafted Moody and Kuminga and kind of questioning that to him. And he was like, look, we're paying, basically they got 5 guys on a max now. If you want to consider Jordan Blushing's a max, but 5 huge contract guys. His belief is they're paying the present. They have plenty to win now, and they're also trying to develop the future. Now, last year that was easier to, they played the present core, and the present core was good enough to win a title. In the playoffs, Wiseman didn't play all season. Kuminga barely played in the playoffs. Moody barely played. This season was always going to be more of a litmus test on this plan, which is ambitious. It's rare. It's hard to do. And I still think, especially because we know their core now can win the title, if they start a playoff series tomorrow, you don't have to play the youth. Moody can get some rotation minutes, but generally you have your stable starting 5. Jordan Poole's a great 6th man. DiVincenzo, JaMychal Green, that's a 7-8 in a rotation. Moody plays 9. You maybe sprinkle in a little Kuminga, Wiseman. That's still probably the West favorites, in a series that starts tomorrow. But there's going to be such growing pains this season because they are going to, I think, rightly prioritize the development of the youth because they've gone down this path. I do think maybe what you're getting to is take 2 steps back. Should they be doing this? I don't know. But if you are doing it, you should play the guys during the regular season when, the basketball, it's not meaningless, but it's a lot more meaningless than April, May, June.
Yeah, and the meaningless minutes are supposed to be going to Jonathan Kuminga, and so far hasn't really worked out that way. 52 minutes over the course of the first 7 games total. Why has he been so buried on the Steve Kerr rotation?
Yeah, his problem, I think, is positionally. They tried in the first couple games to have him as a small forward in a bench unit that included JaMychal Green and James Wiseman, and that's just not who Jonathan Kuminga is at this point of his career. He's a power forward. He fits best as a small ball, switchable, downhill attacking type player, which to me, the best lineup you could put him in is the starters, but you take Looney out, you put him in, he's in a 4-5 front court with Draymond. We saw that, remember that one preseason game where he had 6 dunks? That was mostly, he was, in that type of lineup. He was in the dunker spot, playing the Iguodala role in the, what used to be the death lineup. That's where he makes sense, but how Kerr is currently deploying his rotation, you have Looney and Draymond starting, you have JaMychal Green and Wiseman having to play front court benchman. There's no place for him. A place for him would be at the small forward, but that's not available. They put Moody over him because they're prioritizing space with the small forward, and it's kind of edged him to the fringe of the rotation. We could, maybe they should be playing him a little bit more over JaMychal Green, but JaMychal Green's currently, you would say, a more reliable NBA player, so it's kind of the delicate balance that they're attempting to go through.
Our Warrior insider, Anthony Slater, with us on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Hey, Anthony, since we have an NBA voice like you on with us as this is happening, this just came down a handful of minutes ago.
Yeah.
We know about Steve Nash being fired, but Ime Udoka, according to Shams, emerged as a strong front-runner to be the next head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. What do you think about that? Are there challenges to get him out with the uniqueness of the Celtics situation?
Bold move by the Brooklyn, considering all the situation. Say that, but they wouldn't be the lone controversial figure that would be around the Nets, I guess. From what I gather, it's and again, I'm not on the inside of this situation reporting the people that are putting it out, but it sounds like Boston is probably going to allow him to at least talk or explore that with the Nets. I think he was on a pretty short-term deal with Boston, and obviously his future with the Celtics is very much in question. So, yeah, I mean, that seems to be where things are trending. I mean, Ime was a lead assistant before the year he went to Boston. He was a lead assistant in Brooklyn. I gather that he has a good relationship with Kevin Durant, which at this point probably is very much a lead qualifier if you have a good relationship with Kevin there. So maybe they're going to do it. Sounds like they're going to do it. I mean, it's going to come with a lot of questions, a lot of controversy, but they're trying to win. I think all the people involved there know a lot of the noise around them quiets if they win, regardless of if it should or not.
Every vacancy involves Mark Jackson's name coming up. What's the league-wide sense of his candidacy? We know how it ended here, but outside of the Golden State bubble, what's Mark Jackson's ability to get another job?
You know, he hasn't been that close until this past year. It really did sound like it was him or Mike Brown for the Kings job. And I do think he was close to that one. And when you start edging to the point that you're like one of two finalists, like you got a chance for jobs across the league. We'll see. I find it difficult. Like, we're talking about this Brooklyn one right now. Like, if you're a Mark Jackson, you're probably not trying to go, into a team mid-season. Is pretty difficult. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a job in the next couple of years.
Anthony, enjoy the rest of the time in Miami, man. Great to have you today. Appreciate you.
All right, fellas.